Now it's funny because my son tonight, I was, put him to bed and we were snuggling, and it's like my favorite thing in the world. My son is just like when we snuggle at night and have that time where we can, talk about the day with no distractions, and I always get him like little treats throughout the day and throughout the week, and I got him some Sour Patch Kids. I don't know if you've ever had Sour Patch Kids, but they're pretty sour, and but anyways, he went up to brush his teeth, and I was cleaning up after dinner, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm gonna have a couple Sour Patch Kids, and so I put a few in my mouth, and then he was up in bed, so I jumped into bed with him, and we were kind of talking, and he's like, Dad, he's like, open your mouth and breathe on me. I want to smell your breath. And I'm like, why? And I knew why, but I didn't want to do it. And he's like, just breathe on me. He's just like, oh, ah. And I went, ah. He's like, you smell like Sour Patch Kids. And he's like, did you have any? I'm like, yes. So we just had a good laugh, and I was just thinking about that because, as we talk about this stuff, it's when we work from home, we have kids, we have spouses, we have distractions throughout the day. I have a lot of clients who homeschool their kids, part of my motivation for this topic tonight, in terms of scheduling and how to schedule our business hours and respecting those, is because as some of you said when you called in and asked you about your motivation for the call, it's entrepreneurship in all of its glory of, oh wow, I get to work from home, potentially, or I get to create my own hours and own my time and things like that. It is great. Don't get me wrong. It's 100% great, and those of you who experience it, it is awesome. The challenge with it though is there is a very fine art of discipline to it in order to be successful, because you are your own boss, and that's the discipline piece. And so as you listen to tonight's call, whether it's live or the recording, everyone's in a different spot, and maybe you're there full time and you're doing this, from home or anywhere for that matter. Or you have a job still and you want to do coaching full time, and that's a lot of people that I work with, is they want to create that transition, they want to take that leap to that full time career, but how do I get there? And it's going to be, I'm not going to say more vital, but just for the stress of it sake, if you will, I'll say it's more vital, especially if you have a job that you schedule your business hours. As an entrepreneur, we get paid for results, not time. I would say, one of the biggest distinctions between an employee and an entrepreneur, because employees get paid for time. You show up, you work 8 hours, you get paid for 8 hours, and whether you do something or nothing in that amount of time, you're still going to get paid for those 8 hours. Whereas, as an entrepreneur, you show up in your office, you could say it doesn't matter the amount of hours that we work. And that's the biggest thing I want to stress, and that's why I'm starting off with that, is it doesn't matter the amount of hours. So do you have to work a 40-hour week as a business owner? Well, I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm just going to say, well, I want you to be able to work the amount of hours it takes for you to start to produce the results, or your desired results. And when I say desired results, let's just say, hey, we want to get paid, right? Yes, we want to help people, we want to do a lot of stuff, but if we're saying we want to grow our business and we want to do this full time, that means you're getting paid full time. Whatever that dollar amount is that you would deem a full-time income, that's the end result. So we've ultimately tonight we want to think about is within the hours that we schedule, whether it's 30 minutes a day or 6 hours a day, whatever it is, we want to be doing the activities that allow us to go towards getting paid. So let's just rewind a little bit, and let's just start to talk about our business hours. And I always like to say it like this. I mean, at some point, most everyone has had a job, and I mean, heck, the only job I really ever had was bagging groceries when I was, in high school and college, because I've always kind of done my own thing and been entrepreneurial my whole life. But when I had those hours, and just like anybody else, you have scheduled hours. And if you're working from, let's just say 9 to 5 at any job, you show up at 9 and you can leave at 5, and you have some, planned breaks along the way. And I'll just go back to my bagging days as a grocery, guy. And, we'd have depending on how long we worked for, we'd have a couple 10-minute breaks. We'd have a 30-minute break for lunch. And our boss kind of told us when we could take those breaks. And that was our schedule. And what I want to say is that, as an entrepreneur, what I'd recommend for you, and this is what I've done, this has been my rule of thumb that I've done since 2004, is I set my business hours, and I want you to treat your business like a job. And I want you to treat it like a job in the sense that you've got to have business hours. When are you doing your business and when are you not? The thing about entrepreneurship is it's kind of like it's all the time because it's kind of hard to shut it down, and like you could be sitting on the couch and all of a sudden you got your phone and there's a commercial on if you're watching TV or something like that, or making dinner and kind of no one's around. And it's just like you turn your phone on and check your voicemail, you check your email, you check your whatever mail, you log into Facebook. It's so easy to not shut down, or, I got to get back to this person. It pops into your head and then you got to get, going with that. So what I'm going to communicate to you tonight is, and especially if you have, when I say family and you're living around other people, if you're single and you're living by yourself, you can be a little bit more flexible in terms of those hours. You still got to be able to put the hours in terms of getting the results from the time. But especially, most people have lives in the sense that they have other things going on outside of their business. They've got kids, they've got family members or spouses, they've got other responsibilities, they've got to go grocery shopping, right? So you've got to make a distinction of, let's just say it like this: when are you doing your business and when are you not doing your business? Because it's so vital as an entrepreneur to be able to shut down, and especially when you're excited about something. I know for myself, like when I've got a project going, or I'm launching something, or I'm really, going to be doing something big, it's on my mind all the time. And I probably work a lot more, but I expand my business hours because I'm focused and I can't get away from it. And I don't want to get away from it because I'm so excited about it. But it's so vitally important, even in those times, to say, well, when am I working and when am I not working? And I just like to call that my business hours. And if we just jump now for a minute to, how do we schedule this stuff? Let's just look for a moment and say, in terms of like a physical scheduling, like planner or electronic and stuff like that, is all I'm going to say is you've got to use what works for you. So if you're an electronic person and you got your calendar on your phone, or, if you're using something electronic like that, there's a million programs out there. Just have everything in one spot. So I don't care what you use, have everything in one spot, meaning don't have a business calendar and then have a separate personal calendar. Just have one calendar, and on that calendar is your day from what time do I wake up, what time do I go to bed? And all the hours in between, it's like basically, what am I doing in those hours? You want to basically account for your hours. And a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of people want to do it because like, I want to get away from that. Because can I work when I want to? Like, I just want to be able to work when I want to and have the flexibility that, it's a nice day. I want to go outside today, or I want to spend the morning doing this versus going into my work. And yes, you can have that flexibility. However, what I'm saying here is that, you've got to plan out your day and know, when am I working, when am I not working? And so have everything on that schedule. The schedule's there to kind of dictate and guide you. And that almost, I like to see your schedule as kind of like your boss, because as an entrepreneur, we don't have a boss. We are our own boss. So allow your schedule to become your boss, by saying, okay, the first thing I do is if I don't look at my calendar in the morning when I wake up, or especially the night before, before when I go to bed, I don't know what I'm doing the next day. Like, that is my boss. It's telling me, okay, well, I've got to get up at this time because I've got this, and then I've got to do my workout and blah, blah, blah. So that one calendar becomes your boss. I personally, and I'll just share this, is I use and have always used it I can't see myself ever changing, but who knows? I use a paper calendar, believe it or not. Like, it's At a Glance is the brand, and it's a book. It's an 8.5 by 11 book, and you open it up, and it's got Monday through Saturday across the top, across the 2 pages, and it's got, every hour with 15 minutes on the hour written out from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. And everything that I do, I just literally write in that calendar. And, get my son up, take him to school, come home, go work out, come home, shower, 11 o'clock, I'm in my office. And so I know when are my office hours, when are my personal hours, like my personal free time, when is my family time. And so I like to dictate, I like to say, like, when am I doing these things? If I need to go grocery shopping, I plan out my business hours and say, okay, well, let's just say I'll use Tuesday as an example. From Tuesdays, I work from 11 till 3 o'clock. And then at 3:15, I go get my son. And from 3:15 till about 8:30 or so, I'm with my son, hanging, doing that, putting him to bed. And 8:30, I'm in my office. I'm kind of just doing a few things, getting ready for my call. I do the call from 9 to like maybe 10:15 or so when we're done. So like that dictates my day. But Wednesdays are different. And I won't go through, the detail of my schedule, but the point is, on a Wednesday, I have a longer work day, from let's say 11 a.m. till like 6 p.m. So, and I do different things and I have different breaks during the day, but I allow my schedule to dictate what I'm doing. And I really want to urge you to develop the discipline of the work schedule. So one calendar, like I said, if it's paper or electronic, shift it all to there. And then really distinguish when you're going to be doing what. And you could break it up into, free time, business time, personal time, family time, whatever times you have there. But you want to make sure, especially if you have other people in your household that you're living with, mainly spouses or, things like that, especially kids as well, is you want to make sure that everyone understands your business hours. And this is a really big piece when you work from home, is other people, if they're home while you're working, is you really got to set up and communicate some really serious and strict boundaries. And oftentimes I've found, personally, as well as the clients I've worked with, is it's not so much the other people. Like we always like to oh yeah, they just keep bothering me, they just keep coming in. And yes, that might be the case. Oftentimes I found the culprit to actually be us, meaning like, okay, I'm going to be in my office from 11 a.m. till 3 o'clock, so just pretend like I'm not here or don't bother me or blah blah blah. And next thing you know, like I'm out of the office and I'm doing something different, or all of a sudden I'm not in my business anymore, I'm doing something else, or I'm the one who's distracted. So it's almost just like people don't take you as serious. Like, well, you said not to bother you, but all of a sudden you're coming out and bothering me, So I'm just be cognizant of what the case is and set those boundaries, communicate those boundaries. And that's going to be a vital piece to your success there. And anything that deviates from that, if the people are listening or they're not respecting that, it just, at the end of the day, it's consistency of conversation and consistency of communication of boundaries. That's going to be a big and vital piece for that. When it comes to your business hours, you want to figure out, what is it that I have for time? Now, a lot of people still have jobs, so that it's not like they can have, maybe even a 2-hour day is a real lot for them. So in this case, assuming whether your job has consistent hours, meaning, I always work from 9 to 5 and then I'm home by 6 and blah, 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 or maybe it's flexible and each week your schedule is flexible. Well, at some point you're going to find out what your schedule is. So just whatever your job is, just go in and block off those hours because you're going to be in there. And then you just need to determine, it's just like, well, when am I going to spend time with my family? When am I going to do whatever other responsibilities that I'm responsible for? And then when can I do my business? And like I said, even if it's 30 minutes, you've got to make sure that you block off those times as business hours, because it's really easy to get home after a long day at work, come home to, let's say, a house full of kids or whatever you're coming home to, do your daily routine and blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, it's 9 o'clock and now you got to get into your office and do your business for an hour or two. And you're exhausted, and that's the last thing you want to do, plus your favorite show's on TV. So under those circumstances, especially, but even as a business owner who's maybe half-time or to full-time, whatever you do with your business hours, you've got to make sure that you have stuff written in there waiting for you to do. So in other words, after a long night and a long day at my job, and I come home, and then I'm going to get in my office, let's say at 8:30 to 10 o'clock. If I don't have anything planned for myself to do, it's going to be harder for me and less likely for me to actually go into my job. Same thing at 11 a.m. If I don't have anything at 11 a.m. when I get in my job, even if I've got 6 hours in front of me and I haven't mapped out what I'm going to accomplish in those hours ahead of time, then I'm less likely to get into my office at that time. And I'm more likely, even if I'm in my office, to kind of drift. And then I'm just doing other stuff that's really not relevant to my business or going to give me much traction in terms of creating results. A couple strategies that I've used is probably the number one strategy is I always like to schedule clients, assuming that you have clients, or when you get them, I always like to schedule my clients at the beginning of my office hours. So like if I start at 11 a.m. after my workout, I always, if I got a client, I've got to get a client there because that gets my ass into my office and showered and ready and fed and ready to go. So I'm got my first client. And I know for myself, I have found that when I do that, I start there, then I'm in a zone, I'm fired up after my coaching call, and now I'm a lot more focused. And I also like, the second strategy is I like to put clients at the beginning and at the end of my office hours. Because that kind of forces me to stay, especially like on nice summer days, etc. Up here in New England, when it starts getting warmer out, it's just like, man, I haven't seen this warm weather in a while. So if I've been working from, let's say 11 till 5, I'm gonna try and schedule a client at 11 a.m. and I'm gonna try and schedule another client at let's say 4 p.m. that will take me to the 5 o'clock spot. Of course, I can schedule in between as well, but I'm just trying to that's going to keep me in there, get me started, number one, and that's going to also keep me in there longer. And that's going to be a big piece to just, again, a strategy that I found has worked for myself for getting me in and then also keeping me in for that amount of time. So that's some of the main pieces, what I wanted to kind of get across to you guys. And then the last piece I'll go over is when I talk about, planning your day out is any time that you don't have a client in those office hours, I like to say, okay, well, what do I want to accomplish in that time? So, and I do that before I go into my office or like right when I go into my office, or if not the day before, is I'll look at it and go, okay, I got a client from 11 to 12, and then I've got maybe a 2-hour block where it's just like, I don't have anything scheduled. So I like to go like, what do I need to accomplish? What do I need to get done in order to move my business forward? And some of it's email and some of it's following up with people, etc. But I look at those projects and I look at them and what I'll do is I'll just put a dash and I'll just write those things down there. And so I found that that's worked well for me because as soon as I'm done with my client, I look at my next block and I go, okay, I got 2 hours before my next client. And I've already got, 3 or 4 or 5 things written in there. And then as they pop into my head, sometimes it's like, oh, I want to do this too. Or something comes up as a result of you doing something that comes up. And all I'll do is I'll just put it right in that spot. And I'll tackle the things that are, the priority things, which are mainly in our business, the number one thing you'll be doing that precedes everything is interacting and following up with people. That's the number one thing. That's probably like 90% of my day is interacting and following up with people, getting them into my group, sending emails out to people, engaging with people in the group, inviting people to the group, finding people, on social media that have questions that I can answer. Like that's like 90% of my office hours that aren't scheduled with clients. 90% of it is doing that stuff. It's interacting with people because that's how I'm going to find, clients, my new clients, my next clients, or people that I can do programs with or collaborate with. That's what we want to be doing in that time. So we want to make sure that in that free time between clients, we're kind of dashing off, okay, this is what I'm going to get done. Because I found that when I have nothing written in there, I finish with a client, then it's just like, okay, well, I've got a couple hours. And then I just kind of drift. And yeah, maybe I start following up on emails, but I get distracted. So those kind of like pre-written down things kind of get me focused right away and keep me focused on kind of the task at hand. So those are kind of maybe a couple strategies that I've used and I've worked with some other people on as well. if you find that you're having trouble sticking to your schedule, there's there's accountability. There's it's who else can you use to help keep you accountable for getting your tasks done. One of my calls I did a little while ago was I talked about how you can use procrastination to get things done, meaning, I recommended waiting to the last minute. So if you're finding that you're kind of not accomplishing much in that time, maybe you have too many business hours. Maybe you're spending too much time in your office. That's what I found. It's like I realize I don't have to spend 8 hours in my office every day. Sometimes I can spend a couple hours in my office, unless I don't have any clients necessarily. It's like I can get a lot of work done and a lot of follow-up done in a couple hours. Have some time off, go play, have some fun, and get back into my office later on for an hour, hour and a half maybe, and that's my day. And I can accomplish a lot in that. So just recognize that it's not, like I said, it's about getting paid for results, not time. So just be aware of how productive you are, because what I found is that, as humans, we can only be so productive. If you think of the school day for kids, or even a work day for adults of let's just call it 8 hours, how much time are they actually being productive, doing real productive work? It's not a long amount of time. I heard a statistic today from I don't even know where, that the amount of action that happens in a football game the actual action is about 15 to 20 minutes. That's it. But the rest is just, calling the huddle, setting the play up, getting ready for the play. But then the play happens, it might be 15 seconds, and that's it. So I kind of parallel that to our business, is that, at the end of the day, you can sit in your office for 8 hours, but you probably only worked and had some good effort for maybe an hour of that 8 hours. So just kind of peel back a little bit and look at what am I actually doing? And that's the cool part is that's why I believe you can create a full-time business even if you still have your job, is because if you can put an hour and a half in on a daily basis, even if you get a little time in the morning and you get maybe a bigger chunk of time in the evenings, and that's for getting out there, putting some of your material out there, engaging with people, interacting with people. If we don't having any clients yet, hour to hour and a half on a daily basis, that's a good amount of time to start to grow an audience. And that's why it's really important to set that time aside and distinguish that from the rest of your day. So you have a start and you have a stop. And that's another piece to stay sane. So it's not just all business. Because at the end of the day, also, you can't force results. You can't just say, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get 2 new clients this week. You can't plan that. You can go for it, but all you can plan is to say, well, what are the activities that are going to lead me to getting a client? And all you can do is do those activities. But especially as you're starting off, you don't have a lot of people, if anybody. And so you can't force people either. So you just got to do what you can to start creating some momentum and getting your message out there. You can only do so much before you're just kind of hyper-focused on 1 or 2 people who you think might be interested in, and you just follow up with them and badger them way too much. And that's why you got to kind of back down a little bit and just allow it to pace itself and allow it to start to grow. It's just like a garden. If you plant a garden, you can't force a garden to grow any faster. It's got to grow in its own time. So plant the seeds, nurture the seeds, water them every day. It's the same as our business, but just like a garden, we're just saying, it's distinguish the times when you're gonna do your, the watering and the tending to the garden, your weeding. Just plan out those times, and the more you follow them, the more consistently you follow them, that's when you're gonna be a lot more successful.